Jack Harper walked slowly through the quiet museum halls, his footsteps echoing off the marble floors. The weapons display cases gleamed under soft lights. Ancient guns, missiles, and battle suits stood frozen in time. Few visitors came to this section of the Earth History Museum. Most people preferred the art galleries or the space exploration wing. 3,000 years of peace had made weapons nothing more than curious relics. Children sometimes pressed their faces against the glass, asking what these strange objects were for. Jack would explain as simply as he could, though the concept of war felt almost mythical now. The museum closed in 30 minutes. Jack checked his watch and started his final round. A woman stood alone in front of the last war exhibit. She wore a plain gray suit that seemed out of place among the casual clothes of other visitors. "We're closing soon," Jack said. The woman turned. Her eyes were sharp and focused. "Mr. Harper, I'm Amelia Sutton from the Department of Galactic Relations." Jack raised an eyebrow. Government officials rarely visited his corner of the museum. "How can I help you?" "I need your expertise," she said, looking around to make sure no one was nearby. Somewhere private would be better. In his small office, Jack cleared books from a chair for Amelia. Star maps and old weapon diagrams covered the walls. His desk was buried under research papers. "You're the foremost expert on ancient Earth weapons, correct?" Amelia asked. "I study history," Jack corrected. "Weapons are just part of that history. But you know how they worked. The strategies behind them." Jack nodded slowly. "In theory, no one has fired a weapon in anger for 3 millennia. Amelia placed a small device on his desk. It projected a hologram of unfamiliar ships near the edge of charted space. "These appeared 3 days ago. They're not from any known species in the Galactic Union." "I'm a historian, not a diplomat," Jack said. "The ships aren't responding to standard peace protocols," Amelia continued. "They've destroyed 2 unmanned monitoring stations." Jack frowned. "That's concerning. But what does it have to do with me?" "Earth has been the center of peace for 3,000 years. The Terran Accords ended all major conflicts. We've been diplomats, traders, teachers, but never warriors, not for a very long time." Amelia's voice dropped lower. "The president thinks that might need to change." "You can't be serious. The Security Council is meeting tonight. They want you there." Jack laughed. "Me? I've never even held a real weapon. But you understand them better than anyone. You know the mindset of soldiers from the war era." Outside Jack's window, the lights of New Washington glowed in the evening sky. Flying cars moved in orderly lines between towering buildings. Diplomatic ships from 20 different worlds sat docked at the spaceport. Earth was the galaxy's meeting place, respected by all for its commitment to peace. "We don't even have a military anymore," Jack said. "Just a peacekeeping force." Amelia's smile was thin. "That's the official position." "What does that mean?" "Come to the meeting tonight and find out." She stood to leave. "The president will explain everything." After she left, Jack turned to his computer and searched for news about the strange ships. Nothing appeared in public channels. He tried his academic access codes and found only vague warnings about navigation hazards in the outer systems. 3,000 years of peace had made humanity soft, or so the other species thought. Humans had become diplomats, artists, and philosophers. They hosted peace summits and helped settle disputes across the galaxy. The ancient warrior culture of Earth was nearly forgotten. Jack looked at the weapons in his museum displays. They were supposed to be relics of a violent past. Now Amelia Sutton and the government wanted his expertise on how they worked. Something big was happening, and Jack didn't like it one bit. He grabbed his coat and headed for the door. If the president wanted to talk about weapons, Jack would listen. But he couldn't imagine why. No one had threatened Earth in thousands of years. No one would dare. The diplomatic ship Olive Branch drifted in neutral space. It was sleek and white, with the Earth flag and Galactic Union symbols painted on its hull. No weapons, not even defensive shields. It was a vessel of peace, like all human ships had been for 3,000 years. Alan Rivers stood at the viewing window. At 62, he was Earth's most experienced diplomat. He had settled disputes between the insect-like Trill and the gaseous Vapori. He had helped broker trade deals between sworn enemies. He believed in the power of words over weapons. "They're coming," said Susan Kelly, standing beside him. As Earth's top cultural expert, she specialized in first contact scenarios. She had studied every known species in the galaxy, but these newcomers, the Vracs, were a mystery. "Remember," Susan said, "they might not understand our gestures. No sudden movements." Alan nodded. "We've done this dozens of times. Not with a species that destroys monitoring stations." The Vrac ship appeared suddenly, dropping out of faster-than-light travel. It was angular and dark, covered in what looked like sharp spines. No diplomatic markings, no signs of welcome. "Open communications," Alan said to the ship's eye. A holographic screen appeared. The Vracs looked reptilian, with scaled skin and vertical pupils. The one in the center wore elaborate armor. "I am Alan Rivers, representing Earth and the Galactic Union. We welcome you in peace." The Vrac's commander stared silently. Then it spoke, its translator converting hisses into English. "You are the humans." "Yes. We wish to establish friendly relations and you are the ones from the prophecy. The sleeping predators." Susan stepped forward. "We assure you, we come as friends. Perhaps there's a cultural misunderstanding we can." A bright flash erupted from the Vrac ship. The olive branch shuddered. Warning lights flashed. "What's happening?" Alan asked. The ship's AI responded calmly. "We are under attack. Hull breach on decks 3 and 4. "That's impossible," Susan said. "No one attacked diplomatic vessels. It had not happened in thousands of years." "Send emergency signal to Earth," Alan ordered. "Tell them." Another blast hit the ship. The lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red. "Evacuation pods," Alan said, grabbing Susan's arm. They ran through the corridor as crew members rushed past them. The ship rocked again. A wall panel exploded, sending metal fragments flying. Susan felt something sharp hit her leg. She stumbled but kept moving. They reached the pod bay. Only 3 pods remained. Alan helped Susan into one. "What about you?" she asked. "I'll take the next one." "Go." Susan's pod launched just as another explosion tore through the ship. Through the small window, she watched in horror as the olive branch broke apart. Alan's pod never launched. The Vrac ship fired on the escaping pods. Susan's controls sparked as a glancing hit damaged her engines. She was knocked unconscious as the pod tumbled through space. Back on Earth, Jack Harper sat in a secure room deep beneath the old United Nations building. Government officials and military officers, military, a word rarely used now, sat around a large table. The president stood at the head of the table, her face grim. "The olive branch has been destroyed. Alan Rivers is confirmed dead. Susan Kelly's pod is missing." Shocked murmurs filled the room. "We've received a transmission from the Vracs," the president continued. "They've declared war on humanity. They demand our unconditional surrender." "Surrender?" someone asked. "Why would they even want that? We have no military." They claim their ancient texts identify humans as the great deceivers. They believe we've been plotting against the galaxy for centuries. Jack looked around the room. The officials seemed stunned, unsure how to respond. Earth hadn't faced war in 3,000 years. "What do we do?" asked a young aide. The president's eyes hardened. "We activate Protocol Lazarus." Several older officials gasped. Jack had never heard of Protocol Lazarus, but he could tell from their reactions that it was significant. "It's time," the president said, "to wake the sleepers." Admiral Patricia Wright had been gardening when they came for her. At 86 years old, she spent most days tending to her roses and fruit trees. Few people knew she had once commanded Earth's last active defense fleet before it was dismantled. The government car that arrived at her small farm was sleek and black. Two serious-looking people in suits stepped out. "Admiral Wright?" the woman asked. Patricia wiped dirt from her hands. "No one has called me that in 60 years. The President has activated Protocol Lazarus." Patricia's back straightened instantly. Her eyes, previously soft with age, turned sharp. "When?" "6 hours ago. The transport is waiting." As they drove away, Patricia watched her peaceful farm disappear. She had known this day might come. She had prayed it wouldn't. In New Washington, Jack Harper was escorted through underground tunnels he never knew existed. They stretched beneath the peaceful city, remnants of an age when humans prepared for war. Amelia walked beside him. "What do you know about Neptune Base?" "It was decommissioned after the Terran Accords," Jack said. Like all military installations, Amelia smiled faintly. "That's the official story." They reached a large metal door. It slid open to reveal a massive command center humming with activity. Screens showed star maps and ship movements. People in uniforms, actual military uniforms, moved with purpose. Jack stared in disbelief. "This has been here all along." "Humanity signed peace treaties," Amelia said. "We meant every word. But we weren't foolish enough to forget our nature." The President stood at the center of the room. Beside her was an old woman Jack recognized as Patricia Wright from historical records. "The Vraks have attacked 3 more outposts," the President announced. "Their fleet is moving toward the Centauri colonies. Our allies are panicking." "What are the Ixalani doing?" Patricia asked. "They've activated their defense grid and asked for our help." "And the Dorset?" "They're considering surrender to avoid destruction." Patricia nodded. "Then it's exactly as we always feared. The moment real danger appears, the Galactic Union fractures." Jack stepped forward. "I don't understand. If we've had this facility all along, why the secrecy? Why bring me here?" "Because," Patricia said, "you understand the mindset of warriors. We need that perspective now." A technician approached. "Admiral, Neptune Base is online. The fleet is awakening." On a large screen, Jack watched in amazement as a swirling anomaly appeared near Neptune. From within it emerged ships, massive warships unlike anything in modern civilian fleets. "What is that?" Jack asked. "The Sleeping Fleet," Patricia said. 300 warships preserved in a pocket dimension where time passes differently. To them, the last war ended only months ago. "That's impossible," Jack whispered. Patricia looked at him. "Is it? Humanity achieved peace, Mr. Harper. We never said we achieved stupidity." In another part of the facility, cryogenic pods slowly opened. Men and women who had been frozen for centuries took their first breaths of modern air. Their uniforms were from a different era, but their training was timeless. General Ethan Powell was the first to fully awaken. His tall frame rose from the pod as medical staff checked his vitals. "Report," he said, his voice strong despite his long sleep. "Earth is under threat, General," said a young officer. "The Vraks have declared war." Ethan nodded as if this was expected. "Status of the Sleeping Fleet. Deployed from Neptune Base, sir." "And the contingency forces?" "Being awakened across all colonies." Ethan stood fully, stretching muscles that felt like they'd been asleep for just hours rather than centuries. "Then we've done our job well." Across Earth and its colonies, hidden bunkers opened. Combat simulators, disguised as entertainment systems, received new programming. Citizens who had participated in what they thought were just games discovered they had been training for this moment all along. The aliens of the Galactic Union watched in confusion as humanity's response to the Vraks' threat wasn't panic, but quiet, organized preparation. And somewhere on a Vraks command ship, their leader received troubling news. The supposedly peaceful humans were laughing at their declaration of war. General Ethan Powell walked through the halls of the command center with steady steps. Despite being 1,200 years old biologically, he looked no older than 50. The staff stepped aside as he passed, some staring in awe. To them, he was a legend from history books. To him, the last battle he fought felt like just months ago. Jack Harper followed behind, struggling to keep up with the general's pace. "I studied your campaigns," Jack said. "The Battle of Orion, the defense of Mars. You're considered Earth's greatest tactical mind." Ethan barely glanced at him. "History is written by survivors, Mr. Harper. I simply did what was necessary." They entered a large room where 20 men and women in old-style uniforms stood at attention. Their faces were hard, their eyes alert. These were the old guard, veteran soldiers awakened from stasis. "My team," Ethan said. "The best soldiers humanity ever produced." "They look so normal," Jack whispered. A woman with short gray hair stepped forward. "Normal is exactly what makes humans dangerous, historian. We adapt. We blend in." She extended her hand. "Colonel Linda Frost. I specialized in alien psychology before the peace." Before Jack could respond, alarms blared. Everyone moved at once, hurrying to stations with practiced efficiency. "Report," Ethan demanded. A young officer's voice shook slightly. "The Vraks have attacked New Eden Colony. 500,000 civilians." Jack felt his stomach drop. New Eden was a peaceful farming world. "What defenses do they have?" Ethan's face remained calm. "More than the Vraks expect." On the main screen, images appeared of the Vraks fleet approaching New Eden. Their ships were dark and menacing, bristling with weapons. They moved into orbit, preparing to bombard the surface. Then something unexpected happened. From the planet's surface, lights flickered on. Defense systems hidden in mountains and under lakes. Energy beams shot upward, striking 3 Vrak ships before they could react. "How?" Jack asked. "New Eden is a farming colony. Every human colony has defenses," Linda explained. "Hidden but operational. Maintained in secret for 3,000 years." The Vrak ships regrouped and continued their attack. Ground defenses took out 2 more before being overwhelmed. The aliens began landing troops. "They'll massacre the colonists," Jack said. Ethan shook his head. "Watch." The screen shifted to surface views. The Vrak soldiers moved through empty streets, weapons ready. They approached farms and homes, expecting easy targets. Instead, farmers emerged with ancient but well-maintained weapons. Ordinary people moved with military precision, taking positions and laying traps. Children were safely hidden in underground bunkers that doubled as schools. "Every human receives basic combat training," Linda said, disguised as sports, games, and educational programs. They don't even realize they're learning battle tactics. The colonists fought back with surprising effectiveness. What they lacked in advanced weapons, they made up for in strategy and determination. The Vraks, expecting helpless civilians, found themselves facing an organized resistance. In orbit above New Eden, 6 ships suddenly appeared, Earth vessels from the sleeping fleet. They engaged the remaining Vrak ships with weapons that seemed primitive by modern standards, but were devastatingly effective. "We're deploying ground support teams," Ethan said. "The colonists just need to hold until they arrive." In a diplomatic meeting on a neutral world, alien representatives from the Galactic Union argued about how to respond to the Vrak's threat. The Exilani ambassador, a tall blue-skinned being, spoke urgently. "We must unite our forces to help Earth. They have no military." An older alien, the Dorset representative, laughed bitterly. "You still believe that? Look at the reports from New Eden. Those aren't the actions of a species that forgot how to fight." "Impossible," said another ambassador. "We've monitored Earth for centuries. We saw what they wanted us to see," the Dorset replied. "Remember why we feared them in the first place." Back on Earth, Admiral Wright studied battle reports with the president. "New Eden will hold," she said confidently. "The Vraks expected weakness. They found humans." The president nodded slowly. "After all these centuries of peace, I never thought I'd see war again." Patricia's face showed no regret, only resolve. Peace was always our goal. Preparedness was our insurance. Somewhere in space, Susan Kelly's damaged escape pod drifted toward a Vrax outpost. Inside, she was no longer unconscious, but very much awake and planning. Operation Nostalgia began at dawn Earth time. Across the solar system, ships that had been disguised as research vessels, cargo haulers, and space stations transformed. Hidden panels slid away to reveal weapon ports. Engines that had been running at minimal power surged to full military capacity. Admiral Wright stood on the bridge of the Freedom, the flagship of Earth's museum fleet. The ships were old by galactic standards, designs from centuries past, but they had been maintained in secret, updated with just enough modern technology to remain effective. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said her communications officer. Patricia nodded. "Begin the broadcast." On every Vrax ship near Earth space, screens flickered to life. Admiral Wright's face appeared, calm and composed. "This is Earth Fleet Command to all Vrax vessels. You have attacked our people without provocation. You have 1 hour to withdraw from human space." The Vrax commander's response came quickly. "Humans have no fleet. Your deception continues even now with these fake ships." Patricia allowed herself a small smile. "I assure you, our ships are quite real, as you will soon discover." She ended the transmission and turned to her crew. "Launch Operation Nostalgia." In the command center beneath New Washington, Jack watched alongside Amelia as the human fleet moved into position. The ships were oddly beautiful, designs from an era when humanity still built for war. "Why call it nostalgia?" Jack asked. "Because," Ethan said as he entered the room, "we're going to remind the galaxy why they were so relieved when we chose peace." The Vrax had positioned a battle group near Earth's moon, prepared to attack the planet itself. They didn't retreat when the human fleet approached. Their scans showed Earth's ships were outdated, with shields and weapons that should pose no threat to modern vessels. The Vrax fired first. Energy beams lanced toward the human ships. But something unexpected happened. The beams seemed to bend around the Earth vessels, missing them entirely. "What's happening?" Jack asked, staring at the display. "Gravity manipulation," Linda explained. "An old human technology. We bend space slightly around our ships. Their targeting systems can't compensate." The human fleet returned fire. Their weapons weren't the energy beams used by modern galactic ships. They fired physical projectiles, massive tungsten rods accelerated to near light speed. The kinetic energy alone was enough to shatter Vrax shields. 3 enemy ships were destroyed in the first volley. "They're retreating," someone announced. "No," Patricia said from the Freedom. "They're regrouping. This battle has just begun." On the Vrax command ship, the Supreme Commander hissed in anger. "The humans tricked us. Their pacifism was a lie." His lieutenant checked the scanner readings again. "Their weapons are primitive but effective. Our shields aren't designed to stop physical objects moving at such speeds. Adapt. Use all weapons. These humans will learn to fear the Vrax." In a distant part of space, Susan Kelly had managed to repair her escape pod's communication system. She listened to encrypted human channels, learning about the war that had erupted. As a cultural expert, she understood what was happening in a way few others could. The Vrax outpost she was approaching was small, with minimal defenses, perfect for what she had in mind. Inside her pod, she had discovered an emergency kit that contained more than just medical supplies. There were tools designed for infiltration and survival behind enemy lines. "They always planned for this," she whispered to herself. "All those centuries of peace, and they never forgot how to prepare for war." Back on Earth, civilians watched news reports about the battle near the moon. There was no panic, no fear. Instead, people gathered in homes and public spaces, cheering each report of human victory. Jack found it disturbing. They're celebrating war. After 3,000 years of peace. Amelia shook her head. They're celebrating survival. There's a difference. The president addressed the command center staff. The Vraks expected us to surrender or die. They didn't expect us to fight back. She looked around the room. And they certainly didn't expect us to enjoy it. Humans are strange that way, Linda said quietly. We love peace, but we never forget how to fight. In orbit around Earth, the Vraks launched their counterattack. The real test of humanity's preparedness was about to begin. The Vraks' counterattack came with unexpected fury. Their ships swarmed toward Earth in wave after wave. The human fleet held position, taking the brunt of the assault. Ships on both sides exploded in silent bursts of fire and debris. Admiral Wright remained calm on the Freedom's bridge as reports of damage came in. Hold the line, she ordered. They're still underestimating us. On her command screen, she could see the larger battle plan unfolding. While the Vraks focused on Earth, human forces elsewhere were moving into position. This was just one part of a much larger strategy. In the command center, General Ethan Powell watched the same battle data. Now, he said quietly, across human space, hidden installations activated. On planets the Vraks had already invaded, sleeper cells of humans emerged from hiding. On moons and asteroids thought to be uninhabited, weapon platforms powered up. Jack stood beside Ethan, watching in amazement. How large is our military really? That's the beauty of it, Ethan replied. Everything is our military. Every colony, every outpost, every civilian ship has dual purpose. Peace was always our goal, but readiness was our way. The battle above Earth shifted suddenly. The Vrak ships found themselves caught in crossfire as hidden platforms in the asteroid belt opened fire. Their neat formation broke apart as they scrambled to address threats from multiple directions. Patricia gave new orders from the Freedom. Deploy the night squadrons. Small fighter craft launched from the larger human ships. They moved with incredible speed, flying in patterns no modern pilot could manage. Their maneuvers seemed impossible, almost suicidal, yet devastatingly effective. Who's flying those? Jack asked. No one, Linda answered. Those are AI pilots, trained on combat data from every war humans ever fought. They have no fear, no hesitation. Susan Kelly's pod docked with the Vrak's outpost under the guise of being debris. She moved silently through the alien corridors, avoiding patrols. Her target was their communication center. If she could access it, she could gather intelligence on the entire Vrak's fleet. The aliens never expected a lone human to infiltrate their base. Their security was focused outward, not inward. Susan found herself almost disappointed at how easy it was to move undetected. Years of diplomatic training had taught her to read alien body language and predict behavior patterns. In a secure room at Earth's command center, Amelia led Jack to a meeting with figures he didn't recognize. They wore no uniforms or government insignia, yet the military officers treated them with obvious respect. Mr. Harper, said a tall woman with silver hair. I'm Olivia Grant, CEO of Starlight Industries. The tourism company, Jack asked, confused. Olivia smiled. That's our public face. For the past 5 centuries, we've been developing weapon systems under the guise of entertainment technology. The other civilians introduced themselves, leaders of corporations that had secretly maintained military research and development throughout the peace era. What appeared to be ordinary businesses had hidden purposes. Every luxury cruise ship my company built, said another CEO, can transform into a battle cruiser within minutes. The passengers don't even know they've been traveling on warships. Jack shook his head in disbelief. The scale of this deception. How did you keep it secret for so long? It wasn't deception, Amelia corrected. It was insurance. We wanted peace to work. We truly did, but we remembered our history too well to leave ourselves defenseless. In orbit, the tide of battle had turned. The Vrak ships retreated, regrouping at a safe distance from Earth. Nearly a third of their attack force had been destroyed or disabled. On the Vrak's command ship, the Supreme Commander received disturbing reports from every front. Human resistance was organized and effective everywhere. Colonies supposed to be defenseless had repelled invasion forces. Supply lines were being disrupted by ships that appeared from nowhere. The prophecy was right, he hissed to his officers. The humans are the great deceivers. They hid their true nature from the galaxy for millennia. His lieutenants studied the battle data. Perhaps we should reconsider this war, Supreme Commander. No, we will not retreat. Prepare our ultimate weapon. We will show these humans the true might of the Vrax. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, Jack Harper followed Ethan Powell through a narrow tunnel. Their footsteps echoed off the stone walls. The air was cold and smelled of metal and dust. What exactly is Pandora's box? Jack asked. The last weapon humanity created before the peace, Ethan replied. So powerful that its existence alone was enough to bring our enemies to the negotiating table 3,000 years ago. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber carved into the Martian bedrock. At its center stood a simple metal cube, no larger than a small car. It had no markings, no visible controls. That's it, Jack asked. That's Pandora's box. Amelia stepped forward from the shadows. Don't let appearances fool you, Mr. Harper. Inside that cube is technology that could destroy entire star systems. Jack stared at the unassuming device. If it's so powerful, why didn't we use it against the Vrax already? Because, Ethan said gravely, we're not monsters. This weapon is our absolute last resort. But the Vrax need to know we have it. On the main display screens, they watched as the Vrax fleet regrouped. Their ships formed a new pattern around what appeared to be a massive central vessel that had just arrived from Vrax space. It dwarfed the other ships, its surface bristling with weapons. That's their ultimate weapon, Amelia said. Our spies report they call it the Planet Killer. Can it actually destroy planets? Jack asked. We don't know, Ethan admitted, but we're not going to give them a chance to try. In the command center beneath New Washington, Patricia Wright coordinated with human forces across the solar system. The battle had spread to multiple fronts, with human ships and installations engaging Vrax forces wherever they appeared. We've received a transmission from Susan Kelly, an officer announced. Patricia straightened. Put her through. Susan's face appeared on screen. She looked tired but determined. Behind her, alien equipment flickered with strange lights. I've accessed their main communication network, Susan reported. I'm sending you everything. Fleet movements, attack plans, weapons capabilities. Well done, Patricia said. Can you get out safely? Susan's expression was grim. Not likely. But I've learned something important. The Vrax aren't acting on their own. They're being manipulated. By whom? The Dorset. They've been feeding the Vrax false prophecies about humans for centuries, preparing them to attack us. The Dorset want to see humanity destroyed, but they didn't want to risk direct conflict. This news spread quickly through Earth's leadership. The Dorset had been their allies for millennia, or so they thought. All along, they had been planning Earth's destruction. On the Freedom, Admiral Wright processed this new information. The Dorset betrayed the entire Galactic Union. We need to inform our true allies. Across human space, ships and stations broadcast the evidence Susan had gathered. Many alien civilizations, once hesitant to support Earth, now pledged their assistance against both the Vrax and the treacherous Dorset. Back on Mars, technicians prepared Pandora's box for transport. It would be moved to the front lines, not to be used, but to serve as a visible warning. The Vrax Planet Killer is moving into position near Jupiter, an officer reported. They appear to be targeting the human colonies on the moons. Ethan's face hardened. They're going to test their weapon on our people. We can't evacuate in time, Amelia said quietly. Jack looked between them, seeing the weight of command on their shoulders. So we used Pandora's box. No, Ethan said firmly. We have one more option. General Powell to all units. Initiate Operation Lighthouse. Across the Jupiter system, hidden installations activated on every moon and asteroid. Energy began building. flowing through networks that had lain dormant for centuries. The human colonists, who had lived their whole lives unaware of the technology beneath their feet, suddenly received emergency signals directing them to shelter in specific locations. The Vrax planet killer began powering up, its massive weapon aimed at Europa colony. Energy readings spiked as it prepared to fire. "Will Operation Lighthouse stop them?" Jack asked. "No," Ethan said, watching the screens intently. "But it will show them exactly who they're dealing with." The planet killer fired, a massive beam of energy that streaked toward Europa. Then something remarkable happened. The planet killer's energy beam raced toward Europa. In the command center, everyone held their breath. Then, just as the beam was about to hit, a massive shield of energy sprang up around the entire moon. The Vrax weapon struck it and scattered. Its power dissipated harmlessly into space. Similar shields appeared around every human colony in the Jupiter system. Operation Lighthouse wasn't a weapon. It was the largest defensive system ever built, hidden in plain sight for 3,000 years. "Impossible," whispered the Vrax Supreme Commander as he watched his ultimate weapon fail. Nothing could stop the planet killer. On his command ship's screens, new alarms flashed. Human vessels appeared from hidden docks throughout the Jupiter system. Not old ships like the museum fleet, but modern warships with technology equal to or beyond the Vrax. "You pushed us too far." Admiral Wright's voice came through on all Vrax frequencies. "We were willing to fight you with our old weapons, to give you a chance to retreat with honor. That option is now gone." The new human fleet moved with perfect coordination, surrounding the Vrax armada. The planet killer fired again, targeting the human ships, but its beam passed through them as if they weren't there. "Holographic projections," muttered the Vrax commander. "But where are the real ships?" His answer came as weapons fire erupted from seemingly empty space. Human vessels with advanced cloaking technology had positioned themselves throughout the Vrax fleet. They struck with precision, disabling rather than destroying when possible. In the Earth Command Center, Jack watched in awe. "All this time, we had this technology, hidden in diplomatic stations across the galaxy," Ethan explained. "Every human embassy, every cultural center housed pieces of our true fleet. We built our peaceful reputation while maintaining our strength." The tide of battle had turned completely. The Vrax forces began to retreat in disarray, their planet killer damaged and vulnerable. The Supreme Commander sent an emergency signal to the Dorset, begging for the reinforcements they had promised. No help came. The Dorset, exposed as manipulators, found themselves facing questions from the rest of the Galactic Union. Their own forces were occupied defending their borders from former allies who felt betrayed. 3 days later, the Vrax Supreme Commander stood in a human diplomatic chamber aboard the Freedom. His once proud posture was hunched in defeat. "The Vrax Empire surrenders to Earth and the Galactic Union," he said formally. "We were deceived about your nature and intentions." Susan Kelly, rescued from the Vrax outpost during the final battle, stood beside Admiral Wright. "The question now is what kind of peace will follow." Patricia looked at the defeated alien commander. "We don't seek your destruction or submission. We want the same thing we've always wanted, peaceful coexistence." The terms offered to the Vrax were surprisingly generous. No reparations, no occupied territories, only a requirement to join the Galactic Union and abide by its laws. Many alien representatives questioned this leniency, but Earth's leadership was firm. "We didn't maintain our strength for 3,000 years just to become conquerors when challenged," the President explained to the Galactic Council. "Humanity chose peace knowing we could choose otherwise. That hasn't changed." 1 month after the war ended, Jack Harper stood in his museum again. The weapons displays had been updated with items from the recent conflict. Visitors now looked at them with new understanding. Amelia joined him by a display of Vrax armor. "The President has appointed me to lead the new Transparency Initiative. No more hidden fleets or secret installations. We'll maintain our defenses openly from now on." "Will the galaxy ever trust us again?" Jack asked. "We kept such secrets." Trust must be earned, Amelia admitted, but they respect us now, which is a start. Outside the museum, human life had largely returned to normal. People still enjoyed art, music, and peaceful pursuits. The brief war hadn't changed humanity's nature. It had simply revealed it more fully. The funny thing, Jack said, is that we never lost our capacity for peace, even while preparing for war. That's what confused the Vraks most, our laughter in the face of conflict. Amelia smiled. That's humanity's greatest strength. We can prepare for the worst while living for the best. And when challenges come, we laugh, Jack finished, because we know who we really are. Above Earth, ships from a dozen alien worlds gathered for a new peace conference. This time, there would be no deception, no hidden agendas, just honest strength and genuine hope for the future. Humanity had been tested and had proven itself worthy of both fear and admiration. The next 3,000 years of peace would be built on understanding rather than illusion.